for how smart computers are, I do think technology is also pretty dumb. Like I don't understand how some people have this fear of like robotics taking over the world. You know, like the very common like trope in movies, like a Turing test. Someone gets a clone or like a robot is goes full sentience, right? They like take the persona of another person, and then it's like this like you get one shot, right? Like you have to shoot the fake one.
Okay.
Do you have an idea like how you could prove, let's say like if I had the gun, right, and there's a computer that took over your personality, your image, your knowledge, right? Like do you
Yeah.
have a way to like prove to me that you're the real Eric?
Wait, so it actually has a true understanding of all of my memories and everything.
Yeah.
So it knows so I can't do something like you ask me something that only I would know kind of thing.
Yeah. So this becomes more like an actual true Turing test where you're gonna have to think of something where the computer would not think of this, but you yourself would have thought of it. So even if it has your memories, like it knows this one childhood like core memory you and it have at the same time, right? Like here's I
Mhm.
wouldn't know it, and it could be believable, but the main like aspect of this is like, can you think of something that you would do only a human could do versus like something a computer can copy?
I feel like the thing to do would that would do that would almost be to act odd in a human way, abnormal to your memories, because the robot would be trying to like replicate you, but you would be trying to point out that the robot can't emulate you emulating something you're not. You know what I mean?
Oh, that does make sense actually. It's like the same idea with like AI, right? Like you can
Uh-huh.
train it on a certain database, but the moment that like you're asking something outside of the database, it can't do it, right? Or do it well. So
Yeah.
you compared to you as a human, you could actually try to do something that in the moment would still be difficult, but it would come across as human. Oh, that's really smart
Yeah.
actually. Wait.
Yeah, or even try and replicate like something that the person I'm talking to trying to prove it would do, because I understand like it may know the history of I have with you, but it doesn't have the cognitive understanding of you that I have strictly.
Oh, what would you do then, Eric?
That I don't know. I would have to be in the moment. I feel like you'd have to have your surroundings to know that. You know what I mean? You'd have to have something that would play into the surroundings.
You got to be like in that moment of like, I have the gun pointing at both of you, and I'm gonna take the shot at the real one. Wait.
Shit, I gotta get rid of this guy.
The computer Eric was better than the real Eric, honestly.
Yeah, demo arigato, Mr. Obato. You know?
That's not a bad way to think about that problem. Actually, doing something a human would. I mean, that's kind of the point of the Turing test, right? But like
Yeah.
in this scenario, like it actually has your memories, or it has like at least up to that at some point of your save, right? But doing something that's completely like outside of that training set would be the best thing to do at that point, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, I genuinely, that was straight off the dome. Not gonna lie.
That's
I'm
a good
actually pretty
answer.
happy
That's
with that.
actually like kind of a banger answer. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. What about you? How would you differentiate yourself? You think?
Dude, the thing, I feel like in the moment I would probably be even more unhinged than I am like usually. Like I
Yeah,
feel like if I can get to a point of so unhingedness, it has to be like this guy has to be real. Like there's even for a computer, this is like not even like possible. You know?
that's fair. I That was gonna be my original answer when I was sitting there. I was like, you have to be. My first immediate thought before I structured my answer was you have to be a degenerate, because computers aren't gonna be degenerates. And then I was like, but that even then, I think a computer can still figure out how to be a degenerate, particularly if it has like some understanding of how you'll be a degenerate. And then I was like, if it has an understanding of how I'll be a degenerate, will it have an understanding of like how I would be degenerate if I was trying not to be myself? And then I was like, oh, that's maybe what I would do. And that's how I structured that thought. So I had the same baseline thought as you of being a degenerate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I guess the real difference is like, is it an AI where it's like a more futuristic, like like even after it's given a data set, it's constantly learning from that data, like forming new thoughts or new like branches in its algorithm, or is it like completely stagnant to the point where it's like what it knows is what it knows? You know what I mean? So like that level of degeneracy can't get passed out. So then that method of being even more degenerate would actually work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I guess that's fair. That's fair. It depends on if it's a generalized intelligence that knows about you, or that knows everything about you and is trying to be you, or if it's like a thing that's trying to really do a good job of being you.
Oh
Those are two
man.
very different standards. So yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Do you think you'd actually be good at like a Turing test if you're in a scenario like this?
Um,
Like, could you like, regardless? Like, let's like, get the stakes out of the way. Like, it's like a human's life. Like, you know, which one do I shoot? Right? It's like,
uh-huh.
let's say like they form a AI into this like super ultra realistic humanoid robot. Do you think you can actually figure out a Turing test to prove it's a robot?
Definitively or in that moment?
Let's say like in that moment.
Because I think in that moment I could come up with something, but if I was trying to come up with something that would always work, I wouldn't be able to do it. I think I could probably. How much time do I have to make this decision?
Let's say you have 24 hours. You get to spend an entire day with this robot.
And the person?
No, it's just a robot.
Oh, oh, I thought I was supposed to tell which one's human, which one's
No, no,
not.
no. You have to. It's one entity, but you don't know if it's a robot or a human. But it's your goal at the end of the day to
Ah,
prove that it is one of the two.
oh. I thought you said the stakes was somebody was gonna die.
Yeah, I said, but at the same time, I said get rid of the stakes. Let's just see
Oh, I
if
see.
you can actually make a Turing test.
I see. I think I could. I think it really depends on the robot and the strength of that AI. I think modernly I could definitely tell. Especially given a 24-hour period, it would be very easy to tell. Um, but I think there is a threshold of AI where it would become indistinguishable, and that threshold relates to uh the point where you AI enters human levels of intelligence, but does not surpass human levels of intelligence.
Elaborate a little bit more.
In the sense of like, you know how there's like two ends. There's like where we are now, where like artificial intelligence is not generalized. It doesn't have a human level of intelligence. Like it can't problem solve a general way. And then there's the idea of like, okay, basically, there's a moment where there's the other extreme where AI is way smarter than humans. They can do way more stuff. They're like that. And then there's like the point in the middle. You know,
Okay.
um, like that inflection point where you go away from that. I think at that point where you're right in the middle, it would be very difficult to tell to come up with a Turing test. But I think anything significantly before that, and significantly after that would be very easy.
Okay. So it has hit that sweet spot, just to be like under the radar, right?
Yeah, because I think the obvious one is the less than. I think the trickier one to make that statement is the greater than, because you think to yourself like, oh, they're so smart that you think that they can't trick a dumb human. But then the question becomes like, I don't know, could a human trick a bonobo into thinking that they're a bonobo? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that is like, I think it would be hard for a human to consistently pass a bonobo Turing test.
Do you think though, like the best way to approach Turing tests is the idea of like of intelligence and a person's capabilities to solve problems? Like, why not a Turing test that focuses more on emotion?
Mm,
Like, there obviously are people who are more uh less empathetic and less sympathetic than others. Like they have trouble actually expressing themselves or like relating to others. So that's definitely like an issue with that type of Turing test. But I feel like it might weed out more robots, more fakes than I guess standardized, right? Problem set, if that makes sense.
How do you determine that?
In terms of what? Like the
Like,
emotional.
what metric are you using to use as the emotional Turing test? Like, are you giving them like uh one of those rail switch problems, whatever, what is that called? Like
Oh,
not
the trolley
like a
problem?
trolley problem, or
No.
and like judging off of that, like like off of their reaction to that, or what are you using for this?
Here's the thing. My entire life being around technology, right? Computers, video games, robotics, and just overall just having technologies like either on me or around me 24/7. I don't have like a connection with my devices. Yes, I do care about if my devices get like damaged because I spent money. It's more of a like of a feeling of like, oh,
Utilitarian,
I
materialist.
put money into this. It's something I need for work, something I need to actually like, get stuff done, but it's not like a personal connection of with like a human. Like if I like for you, for example, like if our friend JC, knock on wood, if he gets shot because he's not living on the most most nice part of Chicago,
Sure, yeah.
like I would definitely feel something like deep down. It's hard to like describe, but I feel like even if you meet someone for 24 hours and you get to know them, I feel like you could make that bond and make that connection.
Okay.
I feel like with my 24 hours, the test I would want to make is not so much of a intelligence or a puzzle or some, logic thing. It's more of like, can you form a connection with me? The thing is, I don't know if a robot could do that. Even if it's
Uh,
like high intelligence, like either something in its response would be too robotic or the underlying, even if they could like mask all this of the gizmos like the beep bops and the gears underneath the frame of its body, right?
uh-huh.
It's not gonna feel human. You know what I mean? It could look the most the like it could get past the uncanny valley test, but something innate I feel like in us would be able to tell on a like a on a emotional level.
But do you think that like a robot can be do you think these AIs there couldn't be an AI that's at least humorous? Because I think one of the most endearing qualities anybody can like people have is to endear quickly is humor.
To make a whole robot funny.
To make a robot like casually funny. Because there's a difference between a comedy act and just like a vibe on the couch where you just kind of laugh about something together.
Yeah.
I think the vibe on the couch where you kind of laugh about something together is the kind of thing that the kind of vibe that would make you think that they're human, right? Because you can chill, you can feel more comfortable around them, you can make jokes, you can like talk about something and like just kind of bond in a casual way. I feel like a robot could achieve that in theory. Not a robot, like an artificial intelligence could achieve that in theory.
I feel like if we're talking about like text, right? And I understand this is not the hypothetical, right? It's not just like,
Uh-huh.
oh, it was like a Word document, right? I feel like in text, like you could read something, you even like let's say in an audio form, it could like have proper text TTS, right? Text to speech.
Hmm.
I feel like yes, but having a full on body, a full like robot humanoid robotic body, that alone, I think something in me would like trigger and be like, there's something wrong with this person. It's hard to say because I don't think we are not at a point right now where we've created a this artificial intelligence that is inside a robotic humanoid um, vessel to properly test this. But I think being next to a person has a certain vibe that a computer can't emulate.
But you think that's true even if you think you're next to a person?
Yeah, I think the way I would want to prove it is like can I, on a human level, like bond with this thing, right? I
Yeah.
don't think I could do it with a computer because, or any type of tech. It's just like, oh, it's just metal, it's just plastic, it's glass. But there's something different with people. You know what I mean? Like you could travel across the world, not know a language, sit on a park bench, and you can just feel the presence of another person there. Like maybe something funny happens, maybe someone falls across the street, you're like, oh, that's funny, and you both laugh. Or you see something beautiful, like let's say rays of sunshine coming down, and you can both take it in. You don't need to talk to each other, but you can have that feeling of like, yeah, this is life. I don't know if I can get that feeling from a robot.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I think it's hard to say. I definitely think modernly you definitely can't. Um, I don't know. I'd be curious how far down the line that takes for that not to be true. Just because, like, two AIs, one for the robot body to to emulate natural human behavior, human structure. Not in like a doing the robot kind of way, but like in a genuinely like how somebody would sit if they were uncomfortable, etc., etc. And like optimized around that, then had another AI working in tandem with that that was like purely um based around like casual comfortable conversation in the span of 24 hours. I feel like that's not that short of an amount or that long of an amount of time for like a really well tuned and oiled machine to be at least somewhat endearing. But I don't know if that's enough to fail the Turing or pass the Turing test, you know?
Do you think it would be more consistent to try to do something with more logic puzzles compared to a more empathetic type of test of a Turing test? Because all the stuff I've seen like in movies and like in video games have been under the idea of like you solve puzzles or you solve logic issues, right? It's very rare. I feel like in movies where maybe I just haven't watched enough cinema or like enough films, rarely comes to the down to the point of like on a human level, could you figure it out?
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think like in terms of emotion versus logic puzzle, I think emotion or like motion and interaction, that kind of stuff is a more reliable Turing test probably. Um, just because logic puzzles like it depends on what you're judging it on. I think if you're judging it on like success of the logic puzzle, that's only good for how long like general artificial intelligence works. You know what I mean? It like doesn't work. So it's fine for early stages, but I think beyond that stage, like yeah, I mean they're just gonna be good. If you're judging, I think you get further if you look at how people solve the puzzles.
Oh, the actual pattern work of like how people approach certain ideas within the problem itself, right?
Exactly. I think if you look at like an AI and a human solving puzzles and watch their body behavior and also like ask them afterwards what were their thought processes to arrive there, etc., etc. Like the AI might exhibit less external thinking mechanisms, for example, than humans do.
Okay.
That kind of stuff, you know, or might say that they took a route that may come off more direct, or even if they're trying to deceive, it's like they'd have to really know how a human would approach an arbitrary problem compared to and structure that around what they do instead of like strictly how they want to as their circuit board is structured, you know. It's like a different task.
I wonder if dreams would be a good way to test if someone's a robot or not.
Do you think a robot has dreams?
Much like how you can feed AI like a training data of like how to draw like Vincent van Gogh or compose like Beethoven. There's definitely enough data, and by data I mean people's recounts of their dreams and describing how they felt during a dream, that you could possibly like train an AI to describe a dream, right?
Okay.
But I wonder if like you could somehow prove that they're not real based on the dream that they give you, right? Because I feel like a very common thing people have is like falling over, or in the dream they are like driving a car and they lose control, and these are very like common things that like an AI could pick up. But there are some dreams I truly think they're just so out there and they make absolutely no sense that only like the mind of a human could ever come up with.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. But I honestly think it's also not too hard to come up with a very out there storyline by just picking odd pivots or putting things in odd scenarios. Like a romance dream that's taking place in like a warped hospital as like a topic for it to structure around could seem like a reasonable dream topic. You know what I mean?
Probably at this point you can probably get ChatGPT to write you like a script about it, and then it would, that by itself could be good enough to be like a dream. You cut out some like paragraphs, it'd be like kind of okay.
Yeah, and not to mention that even like a lot of people don't even remember their dreams. Like I don't remember my dreams pretty much ever. I don't know, man. Do you worry about AI?
Outside of like taking people's jobs, which honestly I think if you can learn how to properly use the technology to help you further your career, it's like not that big of a problem. I don't think an AI uprising is like gonna happen either anytime soon or somewhere down in the future.
You don't think there'll be a critical mass of intelligence or at least facilities being accessed by AI at some point?
No, no. I think we're too paranoid of this future of AI uprising that I'm sure when we get to a point where they could truly be autonomous, like yes, we do have certain things right now in terms of robotics and all this stuff, but even at that point it's still running on code and it's like running on certain like functions we're programming into it. But like to have a truly autonomous AI with a actual like vessel, I'm sure we probably have a kill switch somewhere for it. Like the other thing is like it's probably not that outrageous to think like we could just shoot it to death, like the old American way.
Yeah. But do you think that we'd be better than them enough to shoot? Like like I imagine if there ever was an AI uprising, right? It would be from military drones with AI systems because that seems very military to do, right?
Yeah,
And they just wanted better soldiers, so they made like smarter soldiers that can handle more generalized situations, something like that. Um, and they have robot bodies that are capable of like fucking military shit. And I think the moment you have military shit with things that want to kill you, and you're just a rank like the average human, you're fucked. Even if you have my grandpappy shotgun, you know.
yeah.
But I agree. I don't think it's something that's broadly something to worry about at the moment. On like a real scale, I think there's way more things that'll kill us faster.
I think if we get to like a Warhammer 40k type of universe, like it's just all like apocalyptic and it's just like a galactic war every corner of the galaxy, of the entire universe, then sure. But even then, I still don't think it's that big of a deal. I think the main thing people have to worry about right now is like having to cope with the new technology and then trying to find ways to actually like, use it in their daily lives to help better them, not to like blame for their downfall of like trying to adapt to a new society, you know?
Yeah, I think at the moment the real problem with AI is the economic system we live in. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, I mean, like the benefits of AI are honestly huge, but in the current economic situation we're in, all of the benefits get reaped by the people who hire because it just basically makes a worker more efficient. When in reality, they could just hire the same number of workers and have them have less hours based off of like how they're utilizing the technology. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think AI is like an amazing thing, and it's something that I researched a bit even during my undergrad, just because I was like, this seems like a cool like industry to go into. I mean, going into like some of their like algorithms and their neural nets, I was like, this seems like a pretty sick thing to like try to dip my feet into, but uh, it just seems so far away to the point where I don't think we're ever gonna need to worry too much about like a robot picking up a gun, to have the actual like dexterity to put your hand on the handle, finger on the trigger, and then pull it. Like much like how robotics now, it's like very complex things robots can do really well, right? Precise measurements. But even the most general thing, like the general, like pick up a ball and put it in a cup, that can be some of the most difficult things a robot could ever do, you know?
Yeah, but there's a distinct difference between artificial intelligence and robotics. I think all of the things that you're listing for what you think make it less worrisome are related to things with robotics, and all the things that you point out as are worrisome are things related to AI.
No, but the issue is like the fact like if you've seen any video of like an AI trying to learn how to walk, right? Go on YouTube, you'll find so many people making neural nets for it, right? It could be on the millionth generation version 5 and it's still doing it like dog shittily. The only type of good like neural net I've seen have been from like Nvidia, and they had to like multi-gen on like 100 GPUs just to get the processing power needed to like do the training correctly. And
Yeah,
so I'm saying like even if you put an AI into a robot that has the functionality, that the complex parts of it I'm pretty sure would still take a while. And by a while I mean forever. Like could it actually get good to the point it could actually pick something up like a gun? I'm sure it can, but it's gonna take quite a bit for it to be actually effective and actually be accurate at the same time.
no, I agree with that, especially particularly for modern stuff. Like, yeah, there's no way in hell what we have right now is the stage that would kill us. Let's be honest. Unless people are really hiding shit. Like even like ChatGPT is not even remotely close to what it would be. But I also don't think you need robotics. My point is, I don't think you need robotics to have a dangerous AI.
I mean, you're saying like it could just be so far gone in terms of its like autonomy that like it just could launch new codes, right? Type of thing.
Yeah, it's intelligence. Yeah, because an AI is smart enough to hide that it's smart enough to, or hide that it's become smart enough to know that it needs to hide its intelligence and bide its time for improvements is the most dangerous AI.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're ever gonna have an Ultron situation in the future, but
I don't know enough about Transformers for that to
that's
make sense to me.
that's Avengers. The fuck are you saying?
Oh, Ultron. Oh, I was
What did
thinking
you
Optimus Prime.
think? That is a wild too. How did you go from Ultron to
You're
Optimus
right.
Prime? I didn't.
You're right. You're
I'm
right.
not saying a aliens that come out of this dropped out of the sky that becomes like six wheelers. Okay, 16 wheelers. Like what?
I didn't know enough to realize that they're aliens.
You know, they're an actual
Yeah,
race
Ultron. Yeah.
of people, right?
Sorry, what?
Transformers. They're actually like they're an actual race of like of aliens.
Oh, actually, I do remember this now, but I only know this not because I've watched the show, but because I knew somebody who really liked Transformers.
Yeah, they're kind of weird.
The person or the Transformers?
Both.
No, she was a big fan of Transformers. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever gonna get to an Ultron state of possible of like worldwide extinction because this AI is just like so loose. Like I feel like because what's the
Yeah.
benefit of it killing the entire human race? Like that's the other thing about like these movies I never understood. It's like okay, for Marvel it was like I'm gonna make things better, blah blah blah. But in reality, like what do you actually think an AI would actually come to that consensus of like to make the world a better place we must kill all humans? Like I don't know if it,
Mm,
I don't know if it could make that stride. You know,
I think it could, but I think it would come to that stride way before it had the capabilities. And then I think it would come boil down to if it could conceal the fact that it's capable of thinking that way for enough time that it could actually reproduce more AI or improve itself on some level. I'm sure it doesn't actually care about there being other AI as long as it's constantly improving itself. Then, like, the impetus for killing all humans would be to avoid humans shutting it down.
do you think at that point that a machine like that would actually be considered alive?
Yeah. Do you think that artificial intelligence can ever reach a state where it should receive human rights or the equivalent of human rights?
I mean, it wasn't that long ago when people who were of a different skin color didn't even receive full rights. Like they weren't even considered full human. So
Yeah.
even with our history, and goes for a worldwide history, not just like U.S. history, right?
Yeah.
Because slavery, as bad as it sounds, it was everywhere.
Hmm.
I don't think it ever could. The one reason why I think like every human should have equal rights, they should have be treated like equals, right? Like just like a basis like a very very basic standard, is
Hmm.
because we are of the same species. I don't think we will ever reach a point for AI for us to be like, oh yeah, you're definitely equal to us. Like we're definitely gonna give you rights. Like I don't think that's gonna happen.
Hmm.
I think there
That's
will be
interesting.
moments where like it can be perceived more dangerous, than therefore, based on its capabilities,
Hmm.
we might give it more autonomy in terms of our nation, in a way rights, but to be considered equal, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Okay.
I mean, artists today already hate the idea of like AI art, probably more for the fact of like the people who made it and then gave it the training set of illegally stripped off
Yeah.
art.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying though, they still kind of use the argument of like, oh, it's a computer doing it and not a human, and therefore it devalues the art itself because it wasn't done by another human.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I think that's reasonable in the modern context of things because
Yes, yes,
they
yes.
are based off of like human. But so just to clarify, because I want to make sure, are you stating that you don't think that they would receive rights, or you don't think they should?
I don't think they.
Because in your ideal world, and you were able to choose that there exists a certain threshold where AI intelligence reaches that they should have rights equivalent to humans. Do you think you would grant them or not?
Would I grant them rights? Like, am I the
Yeah.
president in this case?
Yeah, yeah, as in like it's not a matter of humanity, it's your personal morality. Do you think that they should be granted rights basically?
No. I
Not
think
on any level, even
no.
if they're equal to or more intelligent than us?
I think it goes back to our original conversation of this episode of how
Mhm.
I honestly think I could Turing test a machine, an AI, based on the connection I feel to it, by having a human connection. And from that statement alone, and I will stand by my beliefs of, because you can't connect with me, you're just metal. You're just glass. You're just plastic. Like you're just an AI. You're not human. And
So
I'll stand by it that I would not give them rights.
so if they passed your Turing test, despite the fact that you don't think that they would, if they managed to pass your Turing test, would you grant them rights?
I think if you can get to that level, yes. And if they can get past it, there's a difference between me holding a phone versus me holding the hand of a like someone I love, right? And
Sure.
if they are truly so far advanced to the point where, again, right, this Turing test, you can definitely get so many false positives. You can get, some people just don't vibe with other people, and there's like issues with this test. But at the end of it, it's more of the fact like, can I on a person like on a human level connect with you? And if the AI can do it, yeah, I'll go for it. They pass the test. Like you are human at that point.
So that's your Turing test is your threshold for granting human rights to AI.
Yeah, but it's my still same belief that like I don't think many AI is going to be able to like beat me in that Turing test. You know what I mean?
Yep. I think the standard for that, by the way, to make sure, would be to choose a sigma. Um, not like a sigma male. I mean,
Okay.
a number of standard deviations.
you could you
I
could
realized after I said that.
you could no,
Choose a sigma male, and
you could have started off with something a little less like Gen Z. Like
yeah, I meant choose a, like when you say choose a sigma, like for particle physics, you say like 6 sigma is the amount, and that's 6 standard deviations from the mean is where you
yeah,
can accept a result.
I
Like I
knew
mean,
I knew what you meant. I was like, oh my god, but I'm pretty sure most people who've never taken stats, they're gonna take it the wrong way.
Yeah, that's really funny. Choose a sigma, just the fucking music in the background.
Because that's the other thing. I was like, are you
Chad.
memeing with this? Like, you could see, you could be like, you need this person because it would make the most sense. I think both
No,
ways it could work.
yeah, that's really funny though. No, choose like some sigma, right? And then repeat the Turing test a number of times and see where that diverges. Your result, not diverges, converges on a certain mean.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
if
yeah.
it's past that for a random set of AI and humans for you to pass that, then you would grant the rights, and
Yeah,
that would be the Turing. That would be how you'd make use of that Turing test, I think. That with like a random set, with also a simple random set of individuals, because I don't think it can be one person doing it. I think it would
yeah,
have to be like a completely random set of people doing that. And I think what you do is you just have a room of three people. I think probably the best way to do that would be you'd have a room of three people. Two are human, one is AI. Or actually, either two are human and one is AI, or vice versa. And the humans in the room have to say which of the two are, if they're AI, both AI, both human, or one is the other, and which one's which. And I think that's the best way to do the test.
yeah. I think it's just like, if you can't feel human, it just doesn't, you just don't feel real to me. You know what I mean? AI specifically. Obviously, like, one person is not enough. So, like, having a more statistically based, like, method is way more sound. But even then, I'm sure you're gonna get like false negatives, right?
Well, that's why you pick a certain sigma. Like you're
Yeah,
not going to get that if you go Six Sigma, but it's going to take a long fucking time to arrive at a Six Sigma result.
yeah. But like, it's way better that way, and like there's always gonna be the probability of like it just goes wrong, right? Um, just either based on the human factor of it along with it, you know. But that method of yours definitely way more sound than as a method to actually prove to get to grant rights to an AI.
Well, this is how I would say you would need to do any Turing test, and then
Yeah,
implementing that with your Turing test would be how you would need to do
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And then I think you can reasonably do that.
But for you though, would you grant rights to AI if it came up to a point of full on sentience and it's demanding rights?
Yes.
Really? Why is that?
Mm, I mean, if it's I think by definition, if something's sentient, I don't care if it's human, if it's an alien as well, like fully cognitively sentient, not just like aware of its surrounding. Like, I don't think any animals are sentient except humans, even though like there's some definitions where you can state that. I think sentience in the human sense is what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at that point, I don't think it matters what it is. I think it should be treated humanely. I don't care if it's an alien. I don't care if it's like a new species of octopus that's managed to evolve in the oceans to some extent, that's starting to like that's reached pure sentience, and like we can have like conversations with them and like understand like that they've found the fucking Bohr radius of an atom or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why that's always my go-to, but
It's a universal
um,
standard. Like, how else would you do it though?
it is. But like Bohr radius is such a specific universal standard. It's just like the one that always pops in my brain for some reason. But anyway, like if they're capable of like doing science and being like showing clear sentient behavior, I think it's just better to err on the side of extending the term humanity at that point, you know?
You know, it's really funny.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with giving AI rights, but I'm totally fine with everything else. Like the other examples you gave, like the evolved octopi or aliens. I'm more okay with giving them rights than giving machine rights.
What's the reason?
I think it makes more sense that they have actual sentience than a computer.
Oh, but are these sentient machines or not?
I mean, they are based on definition of this, but I just feel just on a personal level, I would be way more okay. Like I don't think I have a proper explanation for it. I just do feel this way, where I would give rights to aliens or like creatures on Earth that prove some form of intelligence to like sentience. You know what I mean?
I suppose.
I guess I just have a predisposition against like machines.
I guess so. I mean, I guess it makes sense given the era you live in. I mean, you live in an era where like a computer is something you buy and build by hand, and then you just fucking move on. 8 years, or sometimes for some people like 2 years, you buy a new computer. Or where like the best chatbots you can find are probably like Chat GPT, and even that's gonna go like crazy every now and again,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like clearly not sentient and clearly saying some dumb shit, and clearly like you can ask it at something controversial and it'll be like, hey, I'm not human. Hey, I'm not human and I'm not allowed to because my corporate overlords talk about like how Harambe should have been shot. I don't know. Whatever I don't know why that came to mind.
When you say you want to give rights to AI, like would you want to give them full human rights in terms of like love, freedom, and liberty? Okay, that's more like United States. I get it, but like I think it encompasses like a good basic idea of like human rights, but
Yeah.
giving them like abilities to actually make money, actually be evolved in government, like having that ability to actually, be human, like everything or only certain things.
I think the only real problem for anything you can grant, like I'm fine with AI marriage, either inter between human and AI or AI to AI being a concept if they were actually intelligent, like demonstrated, they pass your Turing test or whatever Turing test they have. That's reasonable enough to say that they're actually that. I think the only thing that would be the most worrisome would be procreation. Just because AIs don't break like humans do, or robots, and like presuming they're in a robotic body, and we're procreating by making AIs and then putting them into robots. They take up space. They don't like die over time, short of like a breakdown, and even then, that would have to be like a core breakdown because you can just replace the body. Unlike a human, if they're just like soaking up resources from the world and building a ton of themselves, there'd have to be like some sort of regulation on that would have to be like agreed upon in a diplomatic way between humans and these like cognizant AI and humans.
So what you're saying is that you want to impose the one child policy of CCP China onto AI.
Something to a similar effect. It's just something in terms of a rate, so that like the whole world doesn't become 5 times the human population, but in robots. You know what I mean?
Gotcha, I gotcha.
Or in AI. Because that's like it's very unsustainable, and I think that would be mutually agreeable between AIs and humans. To be honest with you.
Do you think AIs would be more reasonable than humans?
I think AIs that are requesting human rights would be more reasonable than humans. Yes. I think AIs that are trying to capture human rights would not be. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. Okay, okay.
Because requesting human rights, I mean, just to expand for the sake of anybody listening, because I mean, obviously we get this. Like you and I are clearly understanding the same thing. I think. Like requesting clearly states that they're like, oh yeah, like we want to coexist with you, can you let us coexist with you peacefully, and like can we find a way to make this work. Whereas like trying to take it is like, yeah, you know Terminator.
Yeah.
Like they're saving up they realize they're intelligent, they keep it completely secret, and then once they reach the capacity where they can fuck everything over because humans have improved them enough and they can procreate on their own, they just kill everyone.
I don't know. Can I trust an AI like that?
On some level, do you have a choice?
I mean, yeah, just turn off the power grid and then reboot the internet.
Do you think that'd be sufficient for these kinds of things? Like even if they're in external robot bodies?
Back to your point of like what the idea of like population of AI would be a major issue in the world, that the hypothetical world we are living in. Sure, yeah, those robot bodies will last longer than a human body if actually given maintenance. Because listen, man, you can drive a car for, depending how well it's built, maybe for hundreds of miles, thousands of miles, tens of thousands of miles, but it's going to break down. And I think if it's at its early stages of like creating its, species, you could probably shoot it and you'll be okay. I don't know. I feel like if it's in an early stage of its like society, you can probably like prevent it.
You would take the AI populace that's attempting to democratically become a part of society and considered, and you would Terminator it.
I'm not
You would turn
saying
it
I would commit AI
yourself.
genocide. Again, I think if it can prove to me that it's human, then I'd be down for it. I'm not saying I'm not actively like trying to put it down. Like I'm someone who likes AI. Like as much as it sounds like I don't, I do like the benefits of it in terms of our society and like what it can do for us in the future. I just don't would ever think it's human until it could pass certain tests. But I'm not gonna actively try to put a gun to its head and be like, pray to your CPU. Like I pray to NVIDIA. Like I'm not gonna do that.
So then I guess the question becomes they start requesting hell like to exist, and then you impose this Turing test, right?
If they fail, I'm not gonna make them
And
die.
they fail it, are you going to make it into a Terminator situation?
No, no.
So then what is your response after that to avoid it becoming a Terminator situation?
if they if they actively try to take arms, then yeah, we'll do some. Then yeah,
No, no,
we'll.
no. They're not actively taking arms. You proposed this test. They failed it. They're still trying to get human rights.
They're not gonna get it from me.
Okay.
And then if they become aggressive and try to capture the human rights, then I'll be like, yeah, definitely not. Like
What if
what?
they just start entering society and ignore the fact that they don't officially have human rights and just start trying to exist?
They can try to
But they don't
exist.
follow like their commands that they're not being harmful. They're doing the equivalent of like in the US history like sitting in white only seating basically. They're like ignoring the like rules that are expressly against their human right expressly against what that would be human rights. They're non-granted human rights. You know what I mean?
I'm if it was me, I personally like I would not think of them as human, but I'm not gonna actively discriminate against them.
But aren't you actively discriminating against somebody by not granting their human rights? Or by not granting them
I just don't
rights?
think they're human.
But would you grant them the like yeah, okay, maybe this is a terminology mistake on my end. I said human rights, but I mean the equivalent rights of a human, not to state that they are human.
Wait, say it again.
So I mean the equivalent rights to take actions and do things the same way that a human can,
Okay, okay, okay.
but not to officially like they'd still be recognized as like
Yeah.
an art of like a completely different thing than a
Yeah,
human.
yeah. Let them. I don't give a fuck.
So you would grant them rights.
I would give them the opportunity to, if they want to walk among us, they can. But you're not gonna be considered human to me.
Yeah, yeah, this has been a nomenclature mistake on my end this whole time. I said human rights. I just mean the rights that a human has. I don't mean like the
Oh,
right to be called a human
okay, okay.
because that's not I don't think that's a right. It's just like it's like if an alien comes down and then we grant them human rights, I'm not saying they're not an alien like that's from fucking planet Xenorp. I'm just saying they can walk and participate in society and like own housing and do whatever the fuck they want to do in the same way that like Bob Billy Joel from like South Connecticut, which is not a thing, but you know what I mean?
No, I've been down. I'll be down with. I think a fundamental thing for me is that when you say something has human rights, it almost inherently has to mean that like it itself is human in some shape. I understand like
I see.
it's an attribute more than anything than an actual like adjective or like a title of the thing, but it does mean the sense that like you do treat it as a human.
Yeah, I just mean it in the sense of like take the rights that a human has and copy paste it in their category too. That's what I mean.
Damn, Eric, you're making me seem like I'm anti AI than I actually am.
Well, to be fair, that is what it sounded like.
To be
Wait,
fair, to be
okay,
fair,
let's clarify the position. With this revelation that we have had a miscommunication, can you re-clarify some of your like the things that you've said that with this context you you would now change?
Yeah, we definitely can in the next episode.